So the UFC 282 press conference just wrapped up, and just like UFC 281, I'll be giving a recap of what happened, but unlike that, I'm going to go in order of what happened rather than in order of the fights. I've got my notes next to me, so if I'm looking over here, it's just to look at the notes. And I thought, despite the crowd being pretty low, most of the seats were empty, we had a pretty entertaining conference thanks to Paddy Pimblett and Ilia Topuria. But let's start off with probably the biggest news coming out of this card that isn't related to UFC 282. I mean, I suppose it is in some way, and that's Jiří Procházka. Dana White said we should get 2 more title fights before Yuri's ready to come back and fight for the title. I don't know if that includes Jan and Magomed this Saturday, or if it includes Glover's title fight, and then obviously the winner of Glover versus Jan or Magomed again. So if that makes sense. So yeah, we're looking at 2 more title fights before Jiří comes back. We knew Jiří was going to be off for at least a year to a year and a half, and Dana White said he had half the shoulder surgery, and he was out of it. Well, not out of action because he doesn't fight, but he was out of doing most things for about a year. So yeah, it's a long road to recovery for Jiří, but hopefully he gets well soon. Hopefully he comes back the same, because he is a very entertaining fighter, and I can't wait to see what he does when he comes back. So anyway, the fans were really behind Paddy, and I was expecting maybe the Americans to not get Paddy. I knew Americans liked Paddy, but I didn't think they'd get him like us British people do. But straight away, as soon as Paddy came out, somebody was like, "Kick his ass, Paddy." So I mean, when he faced off, they didn't really get the "Oh, Paddy the baddie." It was all off tune and stuff, but I mean, what can you say? But not a lot happened. It was pretty respectful. We had the normal press conferences, and then Paddy gets asked a question. Ilia Topuria, obviously, they've got their beef, UFC London, hand sanitizer boy, all that. And before that, when Paddy was calling him out on Twitter and saying stuff about Georgians, we're not going to get into that. But Ilia started piping up, and he was like, "Oh, Paddy's always running from me, this and that. He won't fight me." And Paddy was like, "You're a chorizo, lad. You're a Spanish sausage." And he used some other language, which I'm not going to use because I want to keep my channel going. But so those two were beefing. I was expecting them to beef, and what you call it? The Paddy said so. The UFC has kept them apart all week, and then Ilia actually spat at Paddy, or at least it looked like he spat at him. They kept on getting into it, and then Ilia was like, "Oh, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna bang you now." And Paddy was like, "Come on, do something." So Ilia stands up. He's getting held back. They're going at each other, and straight away, I mean, I was saying this after March, which I kind of wish they did this in July, but I think March now, this year, UFC 286, is the perfect time to do it. Paddy versus Ilia. Have Paddy move down to featherweight, because he has fought a featherweight in Cage Warriors. Do Paddy versus Ilia on the pay-per-view card, or have it open up the pay-per-view, or even be the featured fight if we're not getting the rumoured Sean O'Malley versus Cheeto. Or even if we don't get Hamzat Colby, do that as the co-main event. That is, sorry, my phone's gone off, but that is an amazing fight, Paddy versus Ilia. Especially if Ilia wins against Bryce on Saturday, it's got a lot of implications going into it. But after that, we kind of put the Ilia and Paddy beef aside just for a little bit. We'll come back to it, but we had Darren Till. Obviously, he says he's calmed down. He's not got his ego running about. He's not got any beef to worry about. He's just coming in there ready to fight. And Dricus du Plessis Dricus du Plessis, as I've heard some people say it, had been saying little jabs. Nothing too horrible, but just little jabs trying to get underneath Darren Till's skin, I suppose. And Darren wasn't rising to them, so fair play to Darren. I know we've been saying, "Oh, Darren's not got it like he used to. Darren's this, Darren's that." But maybe we're about to see a new version of Darren Till. Dricus du Plessis made a very good point about... My phone's gone off again. He did not make a point about that. He made a very good... How about I just hold it and keep tapping it so it stays on? But he made a very good point about how Darren hasn't done much at middleweight, and at middleweight he's not welterweight Darren. But, I think Dricus du Plessis is going to win on Saturday, but maybe we're going to see a new version of Darren. Do I think if Darren wins he's going to still beat top middleweights? No. I still think he'd be better suited for welterweight, but who knows? This could be a new version of Darren. And now this was very interesting. This was brought up, I believe, for the first time yesterday, because Paddy said He didn't want to mention it because it was in 2018, I believe, but years ago anyway. But one of the reporters says, "Oh, Paddy or Jared, Paddy has rolled with you and he tapped you out twice in 5 minutes. Have you got anything to say about that?" And Jared was like, "Oh, me and Paddy have never rolled this and that." And Paddy was like, "Don't lie, we've rolled once and I tapped you out." So I didn't actually know that. And I believe it was mentioned for the first time by Paddy yesterday. So that puts a lot of... I said second round rear naked choke. And I have even more confidence in Paddy now, maybe even to finish it in the first round. Now, I know a roll is completely different to an actual MMA fight, but that's giving me confidence that Paddy is going to get the job done. If he's tapped Jared twice in a sparring fight or a rolling fight, obviously it's not really a fight, but you know what I mean, a spar then. If he's tapped him twice in 5 minutes, that gives me very, very big confidence that Paddy will win on Saturday. So nothing really happened about there. You know, Ilya kept on, after that, Ilya kept on piping up a little bit, but nothing too much. It was just the same usual, "Oh, you're a Spanish sausage, this and that." But it was getting me hyped for a potential fight between Ilya and Paddy. I mean, I've been hyped for that ever since the whole hand sanitizer boy. And Ilya was calling him out back in UFC London in March after he beat Ea Herbert. So I'm hyped about that. But the last question asked was to Bryce Mitchell. I believe it was to Bryce Mitchell anyway. And this was the last note I made. And he got the crowd behind him. He's being very humble. I think the last question asked, I'm pretty sure it was the last question asked. It was, Ilya's 12-0, you're 15-0. Are you, looking at his record? And the whole time Bryce Mitchell was like, I don't really care about this guy. I don't care about his record. I just want to fight. I just want to win. And Bryce being very humble, saying he's been beat up by his neighbours when he was younger. He's been beaten up in training, so he just wants to go in there and fight, and he doesn't believe he's undefeated. So very humble stuff. And then when they faced off, the face-offs were pretty calm, but this is the one thing I did want to note following on from Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell and Ilya were getting in each other's face a bit, so did Darren and Duplessis, but that was more banter more than anything, same with Paddy and Jared. But this one, you could feel a bit of tension, and Bryce said something, and Ilya, he got a little reaction out of Ilya. Ilya kind of got closer as Bryce was being held back a bit, and we couldn't make out what Bryce was saying, or I couldn't anyway. But Bryce, there was a lot of emotion behind that, so I wonder if Bryce's head is... I'm sure his head is in it, but I wonder if maybe he's battling some emotions we don't know about, and this fight is more personal to him than he's making it out to be. But yeah, that was the UFC 282 press conference. Quite a bit going on, mainly between Paddy and Ilya, but there was a few noteworthy things. Obviously, Darren, we could get this new mythical fighter in gorilla tattoo Darren, because I don't think he had that tattoo when he faced Brunson. So, mythical fighter Darren could be about. And Bryce, yeah, maybe there's a bit more emotion going into it. Nothing really to note about Jan and Magomed, and obviously Santiago, Ponzinibbio versus Morono. Not Moreno. Oh, did I say Morono in the predictions? Morono. Not a lot of beef there, obviously. Nothing really noticeable to say, just respect to Alex Morono for taking the fight. And one last thing I wanted to note was the UFC. They showed what's coming up for the year. They gave us the dates, and I was hoping they'd announce something for 285 or 286. I mean, 286, we all know it's going to be Leon Usman 3. But no, they didn't announce anything. They just showed us the dates, what we knew was going to happen. That's what they showed and announced. So hopefully Saturday we get an announcement for 285 and 286. Obviously we've got the rumours, but until it's confirmed, I suppose we won't know. But that's me out. Stay protected at all times, and I'll see you in the next one.